How do you mix such diverse hobbies as MMA and RPGs?
Oh, hello. I was reading Actual Life and Monsters. Okay, so this question is you mix interest in RPGs with more manly pursuits like martial arts. Why are these more usually at odds? So, first of all, I want to clarify a bit of a distinction, because, a lot of geeks do martial arts, but in my case, martial arts mean combat sports, means actually getting punched, actually punching someone else back, actually trying to choke someone, not like, and I don't want to say that disparagingly, but not like doing movements in the air by myself, or practicing a pre-decided move with your person never trying to surprise me. Like, so I do mean, like, in my case, martial arts means combat sports, means MMA, mixed martial arts, combat sambo, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, kickboxing, stuff like that. Um, and I certainly don't claim to be like I certainly don't claim to be like a great fighter or anything like that. It's just a hub. It's just something I practice. Um, so why are they? Let me reread the question. This is interesting. Why are these more usually at odds? Well, first of all, truth be told, I mean, this is my experience, of course. This is my experience, but um, a big one is politically. These two hobbies are very much in two different spaces. If you go in the tabletop RPG hobby, it is, at least vocally, at least online, at least in hobby stores, it is predominantly very, very left wing. Whereas if you go into mixed martial arts, it tends to be more right wing, right? And this is where being like a normal person, able to talk to people of different backgrounds and different beliefs, and like it comes in handy if you are gonna have like two hobbies that are like philosophically very distant from each other. Because what I find interesting is that we in RPGs we see a more traditional manliness and cool people get involved into the hobby, actors, all of that. So I think from the inside it seems like it's become more normalized. But then if I'm watching, like, look, I can listen to an interview of an MMA fighter, and a lot of them now are inspired by geeky stuff or geeky adjacent, like anime, Dragon Ball, Naruto, like Israel Adesanya, who's the middleweight champion of the UFC, is a massive, massive otaku, like anime fan, loves Naruto and all that stuff. Um, However, none of them have ever talked about playing D&D yet, or any tabletop role playing game that I know of. So, in D&D, of course, we have, like, there's a football player from the NFL, I think, that started doing some stuff. We have a lot of actors and celebrities who realize that the geek world has plenty of potential for mining fans. And I don't mean that cynically. Actors gotta do what they gotta do to maintain a fan base, and a lot of them are sincere in their interest in the hobby. Others are more pragmatic. I think Joe Manganiello definitely is a real geek, a real D&D player, and he's more of a traditionally masculine dude. It's not like the typical nerd and all that. So I think certainly from the inside of the hobby, that image has left the building. But then when you look at it from the outside of the hobby, what you realize is that I think a lot of RPG players are under the misconception that these old views are gone, but they're not, of the typical D&D player. Because what happens is kind of funny. Is this is something that's happened to me very often, where if I'm in the geek environment and somebody mention like that they do MMA, and say people go back to traditional martial arts where it's more like about doing a kata or something, and at first they're like, do you mean this? It's like they don't want to, in a weird way, they don't want to believe that someone rolling that d20 in front of them might also like be doing like actual sparring in a gym or something, or hanging out with people of other mindsets and beliefs. And so they go, "You do that?" And there's that little disconnect for them from who they saw me to be and what I was, the side of me I was showing them. And then when I'm in the MMA gym, you play D&D, and it's like, I mean, I don't play D&D. If I roll a D20, I'm playing Castles and Crusades, but that's beside the point. But it's like, from what I show in that other environment, they don't seem to connect for people, And it's just funny because depending how you met me and the things we talked about, it's like the other side doesn't expect it. So I guess I have a everyone likes to think they're multifaceted. So I'm not claiming to be unique there, but I certainly think I have different aspects of myself, and I'm adaptable as well. Not fake. I don't mean to say I don't do the chameleon thing, but it's just I have different sides of me that I can show in different contexts. And this is also why, like, whenever there's a conversation about a certain topic, you know, uh, there's topics in which I'm not necessarily gonna take this. This is what people on my side say. This I might go like, I think this argument from this side makes sense, but this argument from that side makes sense. So I think just my way of looking at the world. Um, to me, these things are not incompatible, but I realize that to the world at large, they seem to be, right? And of course, on Twitter lately, because the internet connects a lot of people. So I have met, in some cases, people who have trained with like professional fighters or people who are at that caliber, like who would, who are much better fighters than me, who also play role playing games and all that. So that's interesting. I've kind of like been exposed to, okay, there's other people out there, um, who are even like who are certified badasses, and they also played in D and all that. But this is the thing to understand. I think people from inside the hobby, they're like, oh, it's not like that anymore. But it still is to people outside the hobby. And then you go, oh, yeah, but there's celebrities that do it. But the celebrities are very specific. Even the traditionally masculine celebrities, Vin Diesel, John Magellan, they're actors. They're Hollywood actors. It's a very specific environment. And again, like if we want to make it about politics, it's very left wing. But then when you enter into other realms, and look, I know there's also conservative RPG players, obviously, but I'm just talking kind of like about the superficial appearances of today, right? Of the modern nerd and all that. But yeah, and it's about how do they go together? They don't. These two things do not go together at all. But at the same time, I've always been someone who had friends from different worlds. I had friends from goth clubs. I had friends, um, who are like from all types of environments, like working class construction worker, you know, um, people from all, you know, I seriously, I'm not joking. Like throw whatever group category you want at me. I probably have or have had in another city before a friend from that group. So it's like, but yet, like, can I grab all those friends, put them together in the room at the same time? Actually, yes, I have. But the thing is, people get to know me, and that's the thing about me, I guess, is that I will connect the dots between people who never would have hang out together, never would have talked to each other, but because I'm there in the middle, they will, right? So that's so okay. I never thought of that way, but I just did as I'm talking about it. So you will have that, someone from a group who'll talk to someone from another group who never would have talked to each other if I wasn't there, if I hadn't invited them at the same time, because I don't care. I'm like, these are my friends. I'm going to invite them. I don't worry about the social dynamics. And then I think, yeah, as I think about it, some people have admitted to kind of opening their horizons about who to talk to through being my friends. So I kind of, yeah, I never thought of that before. So how do I marry them? I really don't. They each have their place. They each have their moment, right? It's like you're. you know, the reality is that there's few and far between people, I think, who are like me who live in those two extremes, who live in such a geeky hobby. And then if you want to talk about doing something like more like martial arts, like go all the way to, going to an actual MMA gym, actually doing sparring, actually getting punched in the face, stuff like that. Um, for the sake of transparency, I haven't done that in a while because I've been really, really, really busy. I miss it very much, and I do intend to return next year. I hope to an MMA gym where I live now. But yeah, I'm not right now. I'm not in fighting shape at all. But I used to be. That's just me wanting to be transparent. I feel like I would be a fraud if I pretended I'm going right now, even though I have for years. Right now, I'm not. Um, yeah, yeah. I don't know if I have answered this clearly because the thing is they have not. These are two hobbies that have nothing to do with each other. Nothing, absolutely nothing to each other. And even as I'm working on my own role playing system, I have to ignore what I want out of a role playing game. I have to ignore things I know about fighting to keep the game what I want it to be. Because I don't want to go down a rabbit hole of simulation specific to unarmed fighting, because then that means I would have to make every type of fighting just as elaborate. Um, like firearms, an axe versus a sword versus a flail versus like so because of that it's kind of interesting because in my head I have to dissociate, and the reality is that when I enter a mode that's more one or the other, I actually kind of like at any given time I kind of step away a little, never completely, but I step a little bit from. It's like if I'm in a certain mode, in a certain mood for a while, I might be more into my jock side, but then if I go into the geek side, I might, it's kind of like two things in me that need their time, that need their time to be there for a while, and then I might go turn to the other aspect, the other side of me. um what's funny though are so and yeah, that I realized I had to ignore stuff I knew when it came to creating. I'm working on Outlandish Noir, which is my own RPG rule set, and I had to ignore things I know about fighting to not overcomplicate the system just in the thing I knew, because I didn't want to complicate everything else in combat either. But it is funny though, like when you hang out around geeks, there's something weird that because they might often um, discuss the fictional violence as they roll dice. There's something that's interesting about playing role playing games where people who live these fictional stories, they live them so much that some of them kind of like end up feeling a sense of toughness out of the fiction they're portraying, and their ideas about combat are funny. And it's like they think that because this is how it went down in their tabletop game, that they have some sort of knowledge of it, which is baffling to me. It's extremely amusing. Um, whereas if I were to go talk to a guy in an MMA gym and be like, "Hey, what do you know about D&D?" They might know some stuff from pop culture, but like, do you know like they're not going to pretend to know the rules just because they heard of it. Whereas the other way around happens a lot, where a lot of geeks because they read Wolverine or Punisher, or because they portrayed a fighter in D&D, they seem to really think they know more about violence than they do. And I even had, this is no longer about RPGs per se, but just to kind of give an example of the mindset. One time I had like this guy who got really angry with me in a comic book store because I was talking to the cashier, and I just mentioned that was back when Ronda Rousey, who was UFC champion, went to WWE, Entertainment Wrestling, and I mentioned how it was kind of cringy when in the wrestling story they went like, "See, you're not gonna have to deal with you didn't have to deal with that in the UFC," and I was like, "The UFC is real fighting," and then in the WWE, like yeah, everyone pretends it's real, but you shouldn't bring real fighting into it because that's cringy. And the guy got really offensive regarding wrestling, and he started saying, "Well, in MMA they're not allowed to spike opponents in the head. How about that?" And I'm like, "But they don't." But I don't remember. He was saying like things that they were allowed to do in WWE, and I'm like, "Yeah, but that was choreographed." The guy got really offended just by the fact that I'm saying MMA fighters will demolish wrestlers in the entertainment wrestlers in the fight, which is baffling to me. But yeah, I have no idea if I answered the question. I might have just rambled for 15 minutes, but thanks for watching.